Well, the other day, while talking with my dad about Holy Cross priests that we've known over the years, my dad reminded me of Father Bart Salter. Father Bart was a Holy Cross priest for many years. He was from Ireland, came to the United States, also served back in Ireland as director or chaplain at the Father Peyton Center in Ireland. And he had a great wit about him, but he was also very insightful. And I was telling him a story one time, and I'm sure I was complaining. And he said to me, well, Father Dave, the way I see it is they are living rent-free in your head. And I thought about that as I was proclaiming the gospel and preparing it yesterday. There are times when people live rent-free in our heads, and we need to let them go. I mean, maybe collect some rent first, but there's a lesson about forgiveness and mercy that benefits not only them, but us. So it got me to thinking about, what is God's standard of mercy? In other words, what are the ground rules when we sin against God and we sin against each other? If we're interested in making it to heaven, I think that's a really important question. And it's one that God answers in today's reading from Ezekiel and also in the gospel from Matthew. In the first reading, God makes it very clear that if the wicked man turns away from all the sins he's committed, and if he keeps God's statutes, if he does what is right and just from that point on, he will surely live. None of the crime he committed shall be remembered against him. As it says, he will live. And just to drive this point home, God asks the question, do I indeed derive any pleasure from the death of the wicked? Do I not rather rejoice when this person turns away from his evil, that he might live? That's the hope for all of us, for every one of us who falls short of God's way. But there is a warning, and it is this: for those who are virtuous and go astray and does evil and does not repent, beware. This is the caution against presumption. That temptation that we've banked away enough good deeds. We've gone to enough masses, we've said enough rosaries to avoid God's just judgment. Should we not seek his forgiveness? Should we not return to living the good and holy lives that we're made for? Admittedly, it's a temptation to say, what's in the first reading? The Lord's way is not fair. It's not fair when people have committed many sins for many years are given this chance of turning it all around. And they get the same chance to get to heaven if they repent, if they go to confession, if they change their lives. Lord, how is that fair? How can it be fair for the ones who've been trying hard to do the right thing for their whole lives? It seems to me like starting the race in the last mile, like the Boston Marathon. All the runners have put in the hard work over those first 25.2 miles. Why can someone start in that last mile and cross that line? I think it's a little bit like the story of the prodigal son. First, a life of sin over many years is not a life of joy and fulfillment. No matter what it looks like, at best, it's a series of short-term gratification followed by embarrassment and loneliness. God made us in his own image to be good and to do good, to be holy. And yes, we all know at times it is hard to go against the world and at times our own cravings. But that is part of the journey. That's part of the growth and the sacrificial love and imitation of Jesus that every one of us is made for. And finally, in the gospel, Jesus reminds us that his standard of mercy is to be applied to our forgiveness of others. For Jesus calls us to put away our anger for one another and the harsh words that damage our relationships. Jesus calls us today He's asking us to look into our conscience, look into our memory. And if we recall anything that someone is holding against us, that we be the one that reaches out and seeks reconciliation with them. My brothers and sisters, in a special way this Lent, let us follow the example of today's saint, Saint Polycarp, who said, "Let us stand fast and follow the example of the Lord, helping one another and despising no one."